Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about how to successfully systematize a business. And today I have Dr. Jeremy Weiss from Rise 25. Hi, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And, today we're going to flip the script. You're actually going to interview me. And I am super excited because you interviewed probably thousands of people. And that's how we actually met, is when you interviewed me for the podcast for Sweet Process. And I thought, wow, Jeremy, you really know how to interview. I better figure out what else you do. And that's how I got connected to Rise 25, who produces my podcast. So thank you for that. And I'm really happy to have you here.
I'm excited. And this is the year in review episode. So it's the top stories, the lessons learned, some of the guests that you've had on, and, what you've learned along the journey. So this is going to be great. And before we dig into it, I want to say this episode is brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. And if you don't know Adi, you should. If you're listening to this, you should listen to our past episodes, because what they do is they create, document, and improve business processes so your companies can scale and thrive. And people know this, Adi. Listen, businesses simply can't survive without workable systems and well-documented processes. And this is what you do for people. Anyone I send your way, they're like, I needed this. I can sleep at night. I can expand. I can even look at selling my business because they have processes that can be handed off to other people. They don't have to do it all themselves. So you shouldn't wait any longer. Everyone should have this done for them. You can visit bizsuccesscg.com, email them at info@bizsuccesscg.com they can, do a free consultation, figure out what your needs are. So check that out. The first thing, if you're watching the video, you can see here, we are on the bizsuccesscg.com/podcast page. She's done many episodes, and this is the year in review episode. We're going to start with this one with Cesar. He's a serial entrepreneur, certified EOS implementer, the founder of The Profit Recipe. And, there's a lot of things you discussed here about what the profit recipe is, obstacles entrepreneurs face. Talk about Cesar.
Yeah, Cesar is incredible. So he's definitely, what we talked about how to build a business by design. And Cesar has personal experience. He talks about his experience with the business that he started, how he made it successful, how he exited, and he talks about lessons that he learned and how he uses it to help other businesses. And he helped hundreds of businesses. And I've spoken to his clients, and they're just raving. I mean, one of them actually, I just interviewed one of his clients, which is Brett, who completely grew his business, his law firm, from just being himself to a successful law firm where he was able to step out and actually start another business. And he was like a walking testimonial for what Cesar did for him. So that business and life by design, if you want to know how to actually have a business by design and life by design, definitely listen to that episode, and you will get great information and specific tips on how to do that.
Adi, so after Cesar, we have Ryan Buchanan in Visionary Leadership, Giving Back, and he's the founder and chief executive officer of Thesis, a digital marketing agency. They're based in Portland, in your backyard. Again, you talked about how he doesn't see himself as a systems person. He talked about how he started the agency, his original role in Thesis, and how it grew, and how he delegated responsibilities. Talk about Ryan.
Yeah. So if you are in the creative field and you're thinking, well, processes and procedures are not for me, I don't need it in my business, etc., you should listen to this episode with Ryan, because Ryan will tell you how he grew his agency, how he was able to actually step back and work on the business, not in the business, and actually be able to step back and the business operating without him. And for him to actually create a bigger game of giving back. I mean, what Ryan does in terms of volunteering is unbelievable. And you should listen to this episode so you can see that even if you have that thought, well, let's say I systematize my business, then what? It will be boring. Well, there is life after that. And Ryan talks about that and finding avenues to give back to the community and support.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, Adi, with business, and there's a big social impact. It doesn't just have to be about making money. It could be, what can you give back, either money or time, right? And that's huge for that one. So the next is the Field Recon app, how documenting process helps with quality control. Chad Gill is the founder and owner of Concreate. It's a family-owned business specializing. I love this one because there's so many different niches out there, right? And he does polishing, staining, and surface prep and joint repair. And the company he works with are, designers, architects, project management managers, and this Field of Recon. And talk about Chad Gill.
Okay, so Chad is an amazing guy. So you should just listen to this episode if you want to hear somebody who is definitely knows what he's talking about, a great business owner and a great person, right? A great human. But Chad talks about how to use this, basically how to systematize a business through an application that he developed for his own business. And now he's using it in order to help other contractors. And Chad actually, it doesn't just talk the talk, he also walks the walk. And he was able to systematize his business, create processes and procedures so he can actually move up to working on the business and not in the business. He hired a great executive assistant that is helping him with doing that. He hired a general manager, systematized and organized his business, has this amazing app that allows him to actually be in communication with the guys in the field and really understanding what is happening in the business at every single moment without having to be in the field or talk to the guys constantly. So the communication lines are very well set. And he talks about it. He talks about the app and the importance and how he got to it and shares his story. So I highly recommend listening to that episode.
And the value of progress over perfection with Ben. Ben is a real estate investor, successful entrepreneur. He's the owner operator of investwithben.com. And there were a lot of interesting pieces about, Ben, which is, you talked about leadership. You talked about, documenting procedures and why video should be used when creating processes. What stuck out with you with Ben?
Well, Ben was able to systematize his business and be able to hire and train in a field that you might think, well, it's hard to learn those particular subjects, right? I mean, I encounter people, entrepreneurs that say, well, what I'm doing is unique. What I'm doing is unique.
I'm sure that's a common thing people say.
Yeah, it's unique and I can't really train people on it because it takes years to do that. Well, Ben definitely proved that by documenting and by systematizing your business, you can create training infrastructure and you can actually bring people up to speed faster than expected because you have those systems.
When someone says that, and we'll get to the next one in a second, where should people start? Like, you know what, Adi? My process is unique. What I do is unique. I can't really hand this off to someone. How do you encourage them and what should they do to start?
Right. So it's the starting. And you and I did an episode on it in terms of tips on how to document your processes and procedures. It's the same way. It's not something that you need to do differently. The questions are the same. It's basically, we take a look and we see, what is the area that you need the most documentation, that if you had well-documented processes and procedures, you'll get the biggest return on investment. And that applies also if you think I can't document, it's too unique, etc. Well, what is the area that you need the most help with? So let's say it's your sales area. But you go, it's unique. This is the way it's me. It's me talking to the clients. That's why I'm selling. Okay, so then you really need to write your script, write what you're doing, and then figure out what is the common denominator that you're saying every single time. So that can become your sales process, right? Or how do you get leads? Oh, well, I get leads because I get introductions via email. Good. So how do you respond to them? Good. That's a system right there. So it's really figuring out the common denominator and documenting that, creating that, and then you will be able to, it will clear the picture because you'll know that those things are documented, then what's next. And honestly, if you don't know, then you will have to figure it out, because if it really depends on your personality and who you are, you will never be able to scale. So you might want to then tell it to somebody, basically role play, and then figure out, have them tell you what is it that you are doing. And that's what we do with our clients, is like, okay, so train me, sell to me. Oh, okay, this is what you do. And because we know how to write those processes, we can figure out, okay, this is what you did. You did 1, 2, 3, 4. They go, oh yeah, I did that. Good. So that's your sales process right there.
I love it. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Mark Sims, who has the Listen Up podcast. And he's one, Adi, that really loves systems and processes. He wants to stay in his zone of genius. So kind of piggybacking off what you just said, he kind of is like, okay, I know I don't want to do all this other stuff. I'm not good at it. I want to hand it off. So the next episode is the importance of a COO and creating your company's vivid vision with Cameron Herold. And he's got some amazing books out there, Double, Vivid Vision. And he helped early on 1-800-GOT-JUNK go from $2 million to over $100 million. And he has got also the Second in Command podcast. Talk a little bit about Cameron.
Yeah, so Cameron came on the podcast and we talked all about his course, that he has for COOs and for second in commands and for leadership team on how to actually be able to manage, right, and lead. And it's a great course. I definitely recommend that to check it out. But he gave amazing advice there in terms of the importance of having the second in command, in terms of the importance of having a COO, the importance of systematizing, the importance of creating processes and systems in a business. And I've known Cameron now for several years, and it's always a pleasure talking to him. So much knowledge, and he walked through, he did it, like you said, 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So he actually tells stories about what happened and the growth scale and the growth phase that and the problems they encountered and how he overcame it. And he gives examples from different people that he works with. And those are big COOs, COOs of big companies. And, Cameron, I met through our mutual client, Paul Miller, who is he's the host of the Amazing Exit podcast. And he gave me the book Double. And that's when I read it. That's the book that Cameron talks about how his experience as a CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and he talks about vivid vision, etc. So this is a great episode. I actually another person that was on my podcast, Chris Martin, told me that he listened to this podcast over and over because he got so much insight, so much good data out of this that was definitely he was able to use it. So he listened to it over and over. So I definitely highly recommend listening to my
Cameron
podcast.
always delivers. Cameron always delivers. The next one is how to systematize your marketing efforts with Shannon. Mackey is co-founder and CEO of Roadside Dental Marketing, a leading agency that helps build and market cutting-edge dental and medical websites. And she's been doing it for a long time. You talked about the HipCat Society. You talked about building trust and entrepreneurship. Talk about Shannon.
Oh my gosh, Shannon is a genius. She created an app. It's called the HipCat Society. So it's an app to build marketing blueprints, and it's for businesses that are starting. Let's say they cannot hire a marketing agency, right? Or they don't know where to start and how to market. Everybody can join that, get a subscription to that app. And it has such high quality professional blueprints on how to actually create your marketing strategy. And Shannon has been she's the founder of Roadside Marketing, and they specialize in dentists. And I've seen some of the websites she created that she and her team created. It's just a piece of art. It's just amazing. And she took all of her knowledge, and with her team, she created that app. It's called the Hip Cat Society. And it just, I went through it, and it is just phenomenal. You see a video explanation for each part of the blueprint. Like, let's say, how you create your mission, how do you create your vision, how you create your voice, how do you figure out who is your ideal client and how to market to that ideal client. She walks you through specific things that you can do, bite sizes, piece by piece, that you can actually do, everybody can do. So I highly recommend checking that app and listen to my episode with Shannon, because and she's a wonderful person to talk to. So she's amazing. Definitely listen to this episode.
The next one is, goes into the importance of systems for successful marketing with Ryan Redding. Ryan Redding is the owner of DP Marketing Services, which is a digital marketing firm for HVAC, plumbers, other home service industries. And he also has a podcast as well. And, there are some things you discussed as far as, kind of the evolution in marketing. And again, what I love about this one is everyone is a niche, right? So he's helping HVAC, plumbers, and home service industries. What should we talk about with Ryan?
Well, Ryan, I would highly recommend listening to the episode with Ryan, especially if you're a contractor, especially if you're an HVAC contractor, plumber, tree service, any specialty contractor. Listen to the episode with Ryan, because he gives specific advice on how to market the company correctly. And Ryan is absolutely a genius in that area. And we're talking about delivering. He totally delivers. You should see, I know you did, because he does the podcast, but you've seen when you look at the website and the marketing plans that he does for people, for companies, absolutely amazing. So that episode is all about the importance of marketing. And I asked him questions about, what is important when you are a company and you want to market, how to spend a marketing budget, how to set up a marketing budget, how to implement correct marketing strategies, etc.
With Adi, oftentimes people say, and I think you discussed this with Ryan also, but how can you be creative but have systems, right? Because people are like, I don't want a system. It's going to limit me. It's going to narrow what I talk about or do. I like being creative. What do you say to people?
Well, yeah, you should definitely listen to this call to this podcast, because Ryan understands it. He understands it. It doesn't stifle the creativity. He gives his own examples of how he grew his marketing agency because they have processes. So what I say is, if you don't want to have processes, don't have processes. But if you want to grow, then you definitely need to have processes, because they will just increase your creativity, increase the time that you have in order to create, and not lessen it. And I will also say, listen to those that made it. Listen to somebody like Ryan, super successful. Listen to, both Ryans that I mentioned, Ryan Redding and Ryan Buchanan, right? Look at Jeremy and John from Rise 25. They have systems and they are super creative. So, I have other people that I interviewed, like Ben Childs earlier on my podcast, and he's also creative, owner of a marketing agency. I have several examples. So my advice would be, listen to those that made it and are actually super successful in order for you to,
I think it allows people to stay in their zone of genius when you can, get stuff off of your plate and have other people doing certain things. And that really helps. And the next one is improving your professional relationships with paying it forward with Alice Tang. Alice Tang is partner and vice president of BPG Wealth Management, which is a full service, multi-generational financial planning firm. And there's a lot of stuff that you discussed. You discussed her immigrant journey. You discussed the center of influence and how they can transform your network, referral partners, morning routine, and much more. Talk about Alice.
So Alice is a dear friend of mine. She is incredible. And if you want to check out Alice, askalicestang.com, you'll see more about Alice. But Alice has a unique story. And it's very touching. It's very inspiring, like how she came here 25 years ago as an immigrant, and she wasn't even able, I believe she might not be able to work at the time because of visa issues or whatnot, but she got herself up to a point of being super successful, a sought after international speaker, because of the system that she decided to develop, and she developed in terms of creating her network. And she gives specific examples and specific step-by-step actions that anyone can take in order to create a successful network around them, and how to nurture that network. Alice is the queen of networking, but not in a, she's very intentional about it. And she has a system that she developed, and she's sharing it on this podcast, which I'm very grateful that she did, because it can help anyone. And I highly recommend listening to this episode.
The next one is why founders should become replaceable, with Ari Mizell. He is the founder of Less Doing, where he helps founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs become replaceable and build a business that can grow, run and grow without them, essentially. And I've listened to his book. That's also a book that I forgot what it's called. It's like The Art of Less Doing or something less doing.
And he has a new book as well. And I think it's in the notes for the episode. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've probably listened to that book. It's short, but I've listened to it multiple times. And
it's called The Replaceable Founder. And then he has one, it's called On Productivity.
Yeah. All of his books, are fantastic. And here you talked about, how he overcame, the diagnosis he had with Crohn's. He talks about, replacing yourself, communication tools. Talk about Ari.
Yeah, Ari is definitely the guru of productivity and being able to replace yourself as the owner and get out of the day-to-day operations. He has a formula that he uses with his clients, and I learned a lot from Ari. And one of the things that we talk about here is the importance of the value of asynchronic communication. And that's how I communicate with Ari. I mean, I've known Ari for several years now. We have mutual clients. And this episode was the first time that I actually talked to Ari, like we are talking right now, synchronously, meaning like I ask a question and he answers. Usually we always communicate via Voxer, which is an app on the phone where I ask a question, he answers, or he asks a question, I answer. We record the answers, and then he can listen in his own time, and we can go back and forth like that. And that's a really innovative way of communicating, but it saves a lot of time. So if you want to learn all about that, listen to this episode.
Yeah, I love that. And with Voxer, I know another person I had talked to, Robert Hartline, and he should probably be on this at some point. And he was like how he runs his whole company with Marco Polo, which is an asynchronous communication similar to Voxer, except there's video involved. So I love this. Definitely check out this episode. The next one is the hidden system behind podcasting. I know this person. This person is John Corcoran, and you talked about a lot of different things from podcasting, conducting interviews, networking. And John, if you know his background, was a speechwriter at the White House under Bill Clinton, speechwriter, the governor of California, pre-Arnold Schwarzenegger, and talk about John.
All right, so let's put it in perspective. So John is your business partner, Jeremy. So it's both you and John are the co-founders of Rise 25, which is basically, you produce this podcast, you produce podcasts for many entrepreneurs. And this episode is all about podcasting and why should you have your own podcast? What can podcasts do for you? What it can do for your business? How it is like the innovative way of networking, how to utilize podcasts, etc. And if you are listening to us and you're wondering how can podcasts help your business, listen to this episode. If you're wondering whether you should start your own podcast, listen to this episode. This episode is great. And John is fantastic to talk to. So we are having this really lively, nice conversation about podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it in our lives, right? How can you give to your relationships, right? And it's an amazing way to give to your relationships, whether they're on or not on, to talk about them and profile them on your podcast and in your life. So check out the one with John. I always love hearing John talk and his expertise. I wanted to kind of round out the year in review, Adi, with you, which is appropriate. And so we've talked about a lot about the lessons learned, the guests, and some of the topics. And I know, you check out what they do, but you talk a lot about systems. You also help with productivity yourself. And so I'd love to hear some of the software tools, things you do so you are more productive, and that allows you to help more people as well. So let's geek out a little bit on some of the software tools and things that you recommend.
Let's do that. But, you and I recorded an episode of about an hour. We just like rattled all the tools. But, I think that was a while ago. So things change.
Check that episode out.
Yeah.
Anyone? I mean, I sent it to, I think I was telling you, I sent it to someone today and they loved it. So.
Yeah. So let's, the tools that I like, I mean, obviously my project management software. So, I use ClickUp, but I also use Monday and Asana with my clients. So that software is a game changer, in terms of being able to run the business, and especially run the business remotely. I love, the messaging system. So whether it's Team or Slack or whatever you use, it's like, that's also a game changer in terms of communication. Jeremy, you introduced me to Text Expander, which is great because it really saves time when you're typing emails and you're writing things. I don't know who introduced who to what, but to Sanebox, but that's my email management software. I think I introduced you and you beat me in terms of, I love that. That totally allows me, using Sanebox allowed me to get to inbox 0 every single day. So that is phenomenal. Obviously the process documentation platforms that I love to use, Sweet Process, use Well.io, Trainual, that's what I do day in and day out, is document processes and procedures on those platforms. There are so many others, like, you just introduced me to, what did you introduce me to? The One Tab, right? That's great. I just took my organization.
Chrome extensions. Yeah, exactly. One Tab is phenomenal. So many
using
tools.
videos like Loom and Screencastify. You probably, like, our listeners are going, wow, this is like so many apps. Yeah. And I try not to be like too app happy, like, too many, but I definitely have a use for each one of them in terms of increasing productivity. And my advice would be, when you have too many apps that are actually sucking your attention and just like at times and become a time zapper because you have too many and you don't remember which one does what, don't use them. But if they actually have a purpose and they help you, then definitely use them.
Each one has a specific function. A question I get a lot, Adi, is people are always wondering what is the best screenshot software. So I know you use Loom and Screencastify for kind of video. Do you have a recommended or a couple tools that people should check out that will just do a screen capture, take a picture and people like drawing an arrow over it or typing over
I use Snagit.
Snagit. Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That's your go-to.
Do you have one that you?
I'm always looking for a good one. I've used, I think I use Sketch, but that's for a Mac, and I think Evernote bought them out, and I don't know if they support it anymore, but I still use it. I've heard good things about Snagit. But yeah, I'll check out.
Yeah, Snagit is very easy to use, and you can do all the arrows and the squares, and we do it like on a regular basis. We use it when we document our processes and procedures.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because when you're documenting a lot, you need the screen capture, because there's nothing that replaces a picture, right? You could spend like 2 paragraphs writing it, but a picture with an arrow to the button is like, okay, now I know where to click here. So I want to just say, Adi, everyone should check out bizsuccesscg.com. Contact you. If you want sanity in your life, start documenting your systems and doing it. So, Adi, anywhere else we should point people online to learn more, or is that the best place?
That's the best place. They can also find me on LinkedIn. So just search my name, Adi Klevit. So it's ADI and KLEVIT. But the website has all the information.
All right. Go check out more episodes, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.